So can you give us a little bit of a history of that and how you specifically started getting involved and what drew you to like your first contact with methylene blue?
Methylene blue is a very complex molecule, and it's not something that is easy to just give an elevator version of this molecule. But the real benefit with methylene blue lies in its ability to support the mitochondria. Another really exciting aspect of methylene blue is it's neuroprotective and cardioprotective. You want to talk about a rocket ship to health and wellness, this is the recipe.
So, back to this NAD mix with methylene blue. I know that, and just this is a random question actually, because I know that methylene blue inhibits monoamine oxidase, MAOA. So is there a situation where that can be good? Like I was thinking, well, NAD, right, boosts brain function. So could this inhibition extend or intensify the effect of the NAD because of the methylene blue?
Well, NAD is another mitochondrial support, and it's more of supplying the raw ingredients to kind of feed into that electron transport chain. And if you're low in it, you kind of have a rate limiting challenge. And most people, especially as they get older, become much lower with NAD, right? And so if you have poor sleep, if drugs and alcohol can really deplete. Those are the main ones. Sleep, a lot of mental, emotional stress. And so when we deplete our NAD levels, then we don't have the raw ingredient to really go in there and convert the NADH to NAD, and having this kind of chemical dance that happens. So when we give NAD, we provide those raw ingredients such that we don't have that challenge. So it kind of depends whether the individual's low in NAD or not. And that really kind of depends on how much stress they're exposed to and their age.
Yeah. Now your channel, I mean, you have a lot of the endonasal cranial therapies, which are pretty scary to watch sometimes. We had the opportunity to do it with you in Texas. One of your providers did it on both of us, which is a really interesting experience. But what are some of the most transformative results that you've witnessed through this technique? As described in your book, it's on your head. And just for the average viewer, what is endonasal cranial therapy?
I grew up in Hawaii, and I had to defend myself, with a lot of the locals because I was a minority there.
Yeah.
And there was a girl that I just fell in love with, this young girl, and she was a local girl, and her ex-boyfriend was a big old local boy. And I showed up at the wrong place in the wrong time and got my nose broken. And so I couldn't breathe through the right side for many, many years. And when I was my first year in chiropractic school, somebody had mentioned there was this technique where they put a balloon in the nose and adjust the nose. And intuitively, I'm like, man, I think that would really help me. And so fast forward, like a year after getting out of chiropractic school in the mid 90s, I ran into a doctor that was doing the technique, and it was just absolutely like a game changer, life changing, totally reconfigured my face back to its normal position. I got oxygenated. I felt more calm. A lot of neck and headaches issues went away. I had a lot of jaw issues that went away. So I was like, I've got to go learn how to do this. And so I went and studied at the time with the people that I thought were kind of leading the path as far as educating people on it. And since then, I started teaching it myself probably 20 years ago, and have taught doctors in virtually every continent in the planet.
Incredible.
I've seen so many different conditions related to the brain and the body respond so favorably to this. And some of the reasons that it has such a far-reaching ability to people's health and well-being is that nasal breathing is so important to our health. And not only are we pacing certain things through our neurology and our brain to keep us calmer and to keep our autonomic nervous system supporting all of our internal organs properly, and then also allowing better oxygenation and nitric oxide. You know, one of the main ways we get nitric oxide is the microflora in our nasal passage and breathing that in through our nose. And so many people, they can't breathe through their nose. These are the people that we see that fly into Sarasota to see us. And we do basically as a series of these specific balloon inflations. The balloon is precisely placed in through the nasal passage. And as it's inflated, it basically like releases connective tissue. And so there's this dense connective tissue that wraps around your brain and spinal cord, and it gets like adhesions to it.
Yeah.
It kind of gets junked up, and it like holds the face in this contracted position. It doesn't allow something called cranial rhythm. Literally, your cranium is made up of a bunch of different bones, and they all move and contribute to this like movement pattern. And this helps to distribute neurotransmitters and amino acids and nutrients and detoxify the brain, right?
Yeah.
Through cerebral spinal fluid. Really, really important. So
yeah, I remember it felt like that's exactly what it felt like. It felt like when the balloon went up and it expanded, it felt like there was these adhesions breaking up.
Yeah, and you hear it. Yeah.
You know, it was really
It wrapped around my head too. I felt the whole thing. I was gonna explode.
like, oh man,
Right.
this dude's
Yeah.
gonna break my nose, man.
It is powerful, man. I've done this on just thousands of people over the last 30 years, and it's just probably, I would have to say, the most powerful physical adjustment that you could possibly have.
Yeah.
Very
I
again
agree.
novel.
I agree.
Very
I definitely
novel.
agree with that.
Nobody's doing that. All right, we're almost done here. We got 4 more questions for you. I would like to ask you 40 more questions, but because of the sake of time, we're going to ask you 4 more questions. And the next one is, you've been featured on some of the biggest podcasts in the health space. What's one idea or protocol you shared that really made people stop and rethink their approach to health?
Oh, well, I think CO2 is becoming more interesting for people. And we're working with a device that is a carbon dioxide inhaler. We call it
Oh,
How
the
is
one
that?
that they had at
our
the
boxy.
at the conference.
At the Health Optimization Summit.
Well, we have our own,
That he
Dude,
was
yeah.
in your clinic
but it's
Friday.
but that's,
Yeah, the suit.
that's my manufacturer.
Dude,
Yeah,
by the
it's
way,
great.
dude, by the way, we told him, I'm like, max the thing out.
Yeah.
Max it out. He maxed it
Yeah.
out. Like, woo!
I know. You're right.
I'm like, I'm going to lose
I
it
mean,
here.
listen, I was
So do the Zen, and then breathe that. You guys need to get
Breathe
yourself
the
one of
Zen?
these devices. So I'll reach out to Steve, and we need to get you guys a device over there that you can start using. It's really
love it. Yes.
dude.
one of the
And it's
reasons that
expensive.
Listen, it was for me when we were talking about it, I'm like, this is the best this is the easiest $700 to spend.
Yeah.
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 All right. Well, so
Please.
yeah. So they're basically set. You know, we have it for $699.95. You know, and it's on our Mitozen site. We'll link to it here, and yeah. So you can see all the components that are included in this device, and then you can either get these kind of portable canisters online that are kind of like for soda.
Yeah, no, they are. I
Yeah.
have one right here for the sodas. Yeah.
Yeah, or you can get one of those big CO2 tanks that
And
we
can you
have
briefly
those
tell
as
us,
well.
like, what is it doing when you're inhaling?
Well, you breathe it for like 5 or 10 minutes, right? And CO2 is going to it's going to vasodilate, right? You're going to have a lot of relaxation of all your blood vessels. It works on nitric oxide, and in of itself, it has a very dilating effect. And it also liberates oxygen from heme. So the way that it works with oxygen is that oxygen is picked up by a heme molecule because it's attracted to iron, basically, right? So this is in our red blood cell. And so the oxygen basically gets pulled into this heme, and then it's floating around in your red blood cell. And there's something called the Bohr effect. And the Bohr effect is where when there's more CO2, it releases oxygen out of the heme. And so this is what regulates things, because if we're not breathing, we're accumulating more CO2, right? And so when we accumulate more CO2, we want to have more oxygen in the system, because that's, you know, kind of what happens. It's like this reciprocal inhibition type of thing.
Wow.
And a lot of times
We're definitely going to buy one.
Yeah, I like that was my favorite device of the whole show.
when I think as a society, right, it's this overstressed state. And we talked about earlier that can be over regulated through the locus coeruleus. So taking care of that locus coeruleus can really be a benefit. But we have these stresses, they're activating a stress response in the body. And that stress response, the stress response through the locus coeruleus can be inhibited through cognating it, right? So if we feel these things coming up, we can interrupt that by cognating it. But there's a threshold that has to do with CO2 sensor, right? And so when that CO2 sensor gets to a point where you're sensing, like, let's say X amount of CO2 in the bloodstream,
Yeah.
it's gonna set off the alarm that's then gonna trigger norepinephrine. And the norepinephrine is what really charges you up, right? So like, oh my gosh, I can't breathe, right? I'm suffocating.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. You're
I'm
running
gonna die.
oxygen.
That's what it felt like. Yeah.
I'm gonna die, right? This is what's happening neurologically, is like, holy shit, I'm gonna die. I don't have oxygen. We need to like start figuring out like emergency responses to survive. And this is where it dumps norepinephrine, right? So the CO2 sensor and the norepinephrine are like totally dialed in together, okay? So now think about this. If that CO2 sensor is very, very sensitive, then it's gonna be really easy, and we're gonna wanna breathe a lot. We're gonna be breathing heavy and fast, right? That, in essence, is then gonna also further stress our system out, because that respiratory rate, especially if we're breathing through our nose, is gonna trigger that, hey, we have stress, we need to deal with stress. That's going to then further secrete more cortisol and more norepinephrine. And it's just a feedback loop that just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. If we have a low CO2 sensing, which means we can have more CO2 in our bloodstream without triggering this norepinephrine effect, we can be a lot more calm. We can breathe slower. We can hold our breath a lot longer.
Yeah.
We're more
Resilient, I would say.
Resilient to stress.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is what we get when we do breath holding, when we free dive, when we do breath work, especially when we really lean into that breath hold.
Well, it's funny because Garrett was talking about hyperventilation. And
right. Well, that's why I was saying that this is like perfectly the timing of Garrett calling right when we were talking about that.
Hi, we're often approached by patients asking about effective solutions for hair loss or hair loss prevention.
As you know, we love precision, and we found this awesome company that does just that. Discover personalized hair care with Roots by GA. This advanced approach offers custom hair loss treatments backed by genetic insights. Here's how it works. First, complete a simple cheek swab and mail your samples back. Then, receive a personalized report and schedule an optional consultation with a physician. Finally, get your custom formulation based on your genetic results.
So don't waste time or money on hit or miss generic products that may not work. Take control of your hair health with precision.
Use our code for a discount and start your journey today. Or simply visit our website, go under MHI Recommends to learn more. For now, stay healthy
and God bless. Because I remember obviously we're intense dudes. So the guy, I forget what his name is. He's a sweetheart of a guy, very soft spoken, and we were like overwhelming him. I'm like, listen.
Oh, the owner.
Yeah,
we freaked him out. He was like, oh.
We were like, hey, listen, pump it up, man. And he's like, no, but I'm concerned. I'm like, dude, pump it up, right? And so we sat on the thing, and he turned it up, and immediately, 2 breaths in, I felt like I was hyperventilating. I was like,
fill up a bag or a balloon full of CO2, but not all CO2. Try to mix some oxygen, because when it's straight out, it's like really, really intense, too intense.
Yeah.
Fill up the balloon, take a big hit off that, and then lay back, close your eyes, and you are going to experience death.
Wow.
But safely, right? And so why would one want to do that? What would be the benefit of that? Well, the benefit is that if we can realize fear, like deep confrontation of facing fear at the most deepest of fear of death, and stay calm or somewhat calm throughout that process, this is a beautiful spiritual practice. Yeah. And that's one way of using CO2. It's really fascinating.
And it's funny. It's funny that you mentioned that, and I'll let you finish with this one. No, because the next question that I was going to ask you was about like the power of psychedelics and how you've used psychedelics. And I think that one of the aspects of psychedelics is that some psychedelics allow you to experience that death and makes you more resilient to stress and fear in the future. And that's how you're able to kind of deal with certain life-threatening, or kind of like these things that we perceive as threats, and now it's like we just brush it off our shoulders. So the interesting thing about CO2,
we're able to embrace it.
Yeah,
we're able to just embrace it as it comes.
5 mil, yeah.
Yeah, 5 MAO.
Yeah. So this is crazy because you could get a tiny little experience of that.
Very, very similar. You'll see.
So you often talk about the 3-legged stool: vitality, mind, mastery, and God connection. In your view, which of those pillars is the most overlooked in today's wellness world, and why do you think that is?
Well, so the 3 pillars: vitality, identity, and divinity. And this is this idea that we have these 3 main legs of a stool that are holding the stool up and encapsulate this comprehensive approach to spiritual well-being, mental, emotional, and spiritual, and physical well-being. It's all kind of one thing, one topic.
Yeah.
And so what is vitality? It's what we're talking about in this podcast. It's the life force, right? And then identity is, I believe that dropping our identity as far as identifying with ourselves as an individual ego is where most of our suffering comes from. Yeah. And there's a lot of people that will, there's a lot of directions people can go with this identity component, but the idea of it is being more present, being a human being instead of a human doing. And then divinity is a direct experience of God. And we were just kind of talking about that. And so what is this direct experience of God? It's a experience of something so massive, so huge, so all-encompassing, something that many people will say is love. It's this just powerful feeling of majesty and wonder. And this is an experience many people can have in prayer and breath work. Some people have it spontaneously. For me, it was plant medicine. I had a plant medicine journey, and this is where I really had my awakening, where I just got what all the religions were talking about. I understood it in just a moment. And this is what I believe, if you put these all together, we can achieve the highest level of consciousness and of happiness and of just purpose in this life.
What you just said about the plant medicine, when I just came back from my retreat, a big message that I got was you can either be a host to God or a hostage to your ego.
I love that. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah. I literally experienced that.
You're hostage.
I think that you said.
What is it?
I've been on the hostage side, but now I'm hosting to God for sure.
I think one of the biggest things you said is this curiosity to be in awe that I think as a society we've lost, right? Because we're just busy doing. You said to be a human being, don't be a human doing. So I think that we've lost that inspiration to be awed, and that wonder. So I mean, this has been a breath of fresh air. It's always an amazing time to talk to you, John. And again, man, after what you've been through, and the way that you're
embracing it.
Yeah, just your disposition, man, and your posture after what you've been through. I mean, this is a guy who lives for surfing, and he had to
embrace.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Embrace.
I'm literally embracing my life here with my new prosthetic leg.
Incredible.
And I would like to thank Proteor, which is a prosthetic company, and they're sponsoring me. And they're going to be sending me my surf leg here.
Yes.
I get it later this week, and I'm getting ready to jump on a plane and go. I'm going to be in LA, and I'm going to be working out with Laird Hamilton, and from there to Hawaii to surf a little bit with Garrett, with learning how to surf. Starting over.
You're relearning a lot of things, man.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm excited about it. I'm not dwelling on what I lost. Instead, I'm dwelling on what I've gained. That's the magic.
That's a beautiful thing.
Well said, man.
That's a beautiful. Well, just know that we're going to be not only cheering for you, man, but I can't wait to see that happen. But we're also going to be praying for you, man. And so just know that we got you on our minds, and thank you so much for your time, man. It's been an amazing honor to have you on our show and to show people what the mind is capable of. And like you said, I think the biggest takeaway that you said is you're not focused on what you've lost. You're focusing on this rebirth and what you're gaining now and into the future. So congrats and God bless you, man. We send you a lot of love. I think, guys, I hope that you learn as much as I did today from this amazing human being.
And believe me, there's a lot more that this man's brain can spit out, especially on the spiritual side, and so many other modalities like V cells that we just can't get into. That'll maybe be episode 2.
Yeah.
But if you would like,
we do a regenerative episode we talk about peptides and stem cells and that's
our wheelhouse. So I'm happy to do that again. Let's do it. But until then, he's the owner of the company called Mitozen.com, which is a club. You'll see a link below this video or podcast where you can click on it. It'll get you a 15% discount. Believe me when we say, guys, and we've been doing this for 15 years, this man has some incredibly novel products that are unique, and nobody else is carrying them out there. And I wholeheartedly trust on the efficacy and the way he's processing this, because you do not want to be buying Methylene Blue on Amazon, guys.
Yes,
believe
please.
me, you do not want to be doing that. You want to get it from a reliable resource. And John is a medical professional or expert in the medical field. And
if I could just chime in, the other thing is you want to make sure that you take a supplement, a methylene blue supplement that absorbs in the stomach. That's why we make it into the bar.
Yeah,
You throw it in the back of your throat, mouth won't turn blue. You swig some liquid and it just all absorbs. You don't want to, it doesn't disrupt your microbiome that way. And you don't get any absorption through sublingual.
Okay.
Stomach is that's the magic. And that's why. And we've also mixed it with a number of other polyphenols that are these colorful plant extracts that help you further pull in those.
And that's mainly why we wanted to do this show, because we've gotten a lot of calls and a lot of people are now calling about Methylene Blue because it's been popular. So having a reliable, not only an expert like yourself to talk about it, but also giving people a source of reliable, efficacious, and quality products that don't hurt you.
But I also think that, again, exposing some other medical experts talking trash on this molecule because I learned it from you. Your presentations are phenomenal. And when I heard, unfortunately, Paul Saladino saying all the stuff that everybody's saying, that it turns your brain blue, that it's actually toxic for you, I was like, oh, no, wait, hold on. We got to actually go to one of the world's greatest expert in methylene blue and actually get the actual data and science behind it. The truth.
There's no acknowledgement of the vast body of research on the benefits with methylene blue and so many different issues. And like, you know, over 60% of our population has chronic disease, right? And so I don't know who, you know, I know we're speaking mostly people listening to this, not everybody's, you know, perfect health, right? And there's a lot of man-made challenges that we've been presented with. There's like Lyme disease was engineered by Nazis, right? You have COVID, which was made by Anthony Fauci, you know, and we got EMF, and we've got like light pollution. There's all these different things and all these stressors. Yeah. And so methylene blue is a synthetic dye, right? Yes, it is synthetic. It's not natural. It's not like extracted from some berry or something like that. And at first blush, I was kind of like, well, you know, I don't know if I'm on board with that. And most, all medicines and synthetic compounds are made through petroleum, right? Because petroleum are actually organic compounds, right? They were plants at one point. And so they can take these organic compounds and these organic molecules and put them together to make larger molecules. And this is the way most medicines are made.
Yeah, and that's why I always like to tell people, don't be scared of the word synthetic. Synthetic just simply means to form. You grab molecules and make compounds. Those compounds make cells.
They're very shelf stable. You know, there's a lot of benefits, and that's why they use it. But it's basically organic building blocks. And the origin should not necessarily quantify that it's toxic or not, because there's vast differences in different medicines. And like, for instance, I'm a big fan of ivermectin and fenbendazole, and these have very little negative side effects, right? But they're very powerful medicines that don't have a lot of, like with antibiotics, the risk is that you're obliterating your microbiome. You know, some of these other medicines, they don't have those negative. So like the juice, is it worth the squeeze, right? Yeah. We want to know that. Yeah. Is the risk reward, right? The juice worth the squeeze? And with methylene blue, it's absolutely way far on one side that you got all this benefit.
Yeah.
And we need it in today's world.
Yeah, amen 100%. To that.
Well, John, once again, man, such an honor and pleasure to have you. As always, sending you a lot of love, like always. For all of you interested, I would definitely encourage to follow John. Look at his research, look at his work. If you're interested in getting some of his products, like Miguel said, we'll provide a link below so you can get a discount. And we hope that you've gained as much as we have today. Until then, stay healthy.
And God bless.